Hello, my name is Valerie Adams, and I am a retired major with the Alabama Army National Guard. I was involuntarily separated November 30th, 2006, with no benefits. I was separated with no benefits even though I served 19 years in the Alabama Army National Guard because there was no line of duty investigation was done for sleep apnea in which I was involuntarily separated for. I have been going through many issues with the Alabama Army National Guard to correct my records pertaining to sleep apnea because sleep apnea was incurred while I was doing my duty. During just about my entire time in the Alabama Army National Guard, I was the petroleum officer and the Class 3 officer for the 31st Support Battalion in Alabama. And research indicates that petroleum, being around fuel, inhaling, and such, can give you sleep apnea. I applied for VA compensation after I left the military because military personnel told me I was not able to apply because it was non-duty, so I listened to them. But I applied after maybe 3 years later in 2009, and I'm still waiting on an answer from the Department of Veterans Affairs pertaining to that. Right now, the last letter that I received, it was a remand letter from the BVA indicating that they needed more information. Well, my file has 4,574 pages, and they have every piece of document that they need to actually state that I have my disability or service connected. In addition, I have other disabilities such as ventricular tachycardia, which was diagnosed in 1999 while I was in service. I have hypertension, diagnosed while I was on active duty. Onset was on active duty. Migraine headaches as a result of sleep apnea. Sleep apnea was diagnosed in 2004 while I was on active duty, not active duty, but inactive duty with the Alabama Army National Guard. None of these disabilities was diagnosed while I was on federal orders, with the exception of my complication related to my hysterectomy. I was in University of Alabama ROTC, and I had cervical polyps, and I was disqualified from summer camp, almost disqualified from summer camp, but the physicians allowed me to continue serving during my military training, and on the promise that I would come back home and get the cervical polyps removed. I removed them, they came back, and I had to have a hysterectomy. All of that is documented in my records, my medical service treatment records. Everything that I've said is documented in my medical service treatment record, but yet Montgomery, Alabama, Regional Benefits Office declared that my disability was not service connected. The information gives it direct service connection. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I have a current disability. The nexus is linked to my military service and is notated in my records. And to top it off, I have my military entrance exam when I signed up with the United States Army Reserve. On that medical examination, there are no indications of any disabilities whatsoever. I was in good health. So everything that occurred to me occurred while I was in service. And the law presumes that the soldier was in good health when he or she signed up. So everything that happened came after, in between my enlistment. So I know that my disabilities are connected, but they are holding it up. And as a result of holding it up, I have suffered financial hardship. The financial hardship is I am no longer able to work in the civilian sector. I used to be an elementary education teacher, but I was forced to resign because of my PTSD, major clinical depression, and ADHD. Now, the PTSD is not combat related. My PTSD is somewhat of a personal trauma, not sexual, but mine is racial discrimination by the Alabama Army National Guard. My entire service with the Alabama Army National Guard was the worst service that I ever served for my country. I was racially discriminated by my commanders. I won't say all of my commanders. I had two great commanders that treated me well. But the others, they were awful. They were evil. They were despicable men in leadership. And as a result of that, I filed a congressional inquiry against then Lieutenant Colonel Abner C. Blaylock, my battalion commander, in 1998 concerning racism and discrimination. My congressional inquiry had great merit because my military record was superb. I had every military school that I needed at that particular time as a captain to be company commander of Company A, 31st Support Battalion. I had a master's degree, and I was working on an additional degrees. So I filed a congressional inquiry indicating that Colonel Blaylock discriminated against me based on my race and sex. He instead placed a white male who did not have the military service that I have, did not have the military education that I had. His record, if you put his record up against mine would outlast his. But he chose him. He was a white male. I decided I had enough of the racism and discrimination, so I filed a congressional inquiry with the Alabama Army National Guard, against the Alabama Army National Guard, with then Congressman Earl Hilliard from Birmingham. Like I stated before, my complaint had merit because Congressman Earl Hilliard forced Alabama Army National Guard to remove Alan Nollier from the command slot and place me there. Once all of that took place, all hell broke loose. I started receiving the worst treatment that any officer could ever receive from leadership. They tried everything under the sun to make sure that I failed with my leadership. But it didn't work. God was with me. God protected me from all of that evil. And I had a great command. I had a very successful command. So after my command, I was able to get promoted to major, and I was transferred to Fort McClellan training site, in which I had put all of that behind me, and I'm thinking everything was okay. But come to find out, everything was not okay. In the end, I did my job at Fort McClellan very well. I received an award and everything. No problem whatsoever. So in 2004, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. Okay, it's documented in my medical records. I continued doing my job. Like I said, sleep apnea did not hinder me from doing my job. I was very successful. I received another position after being the community activities activity division in the communities activity division. I was, this is the kicker, I was assigned as the equal opportunity advisor. Yes, the equal opportunity advisor. So I knew I had to get trained, and I researched that position. I said, this would be a good position. I like this position. So I sought out to get trained for it. I received my training from the Defense Equal Opportunity Management Institute, and I graduated as commandant, and that is an award, basically. So I did well in it. So came back, and that was in 2001 when I got my training. Came back and started being the Equal Opportunity Advisor. I gave briefings on every ethnic group, African American group, Asian, Hispanic, the Jewish community, the Holocaust, everything. I did everything that I was supposed to do as the Equal Opportunity Advisor. So, while all of this was transpiring, I was still continuing my military training or military schools. I was in Command and General Staff College. I knew that I had to have Command and General Staff College to get promoted to Lieutenant Colonel. So I finished Command and General Staff College in 2003. 100%. I knocked it out. I did it real early. So it's time for me to get promoted to Lieutenant Colonel. Remember, I have everything. I had everything as a major. The only thing that I needed was Lieutenant Colonel to add to the pot, to Command and General Staff College to add to the pot. I only needed 50%. I had 100%. Most officers, National Guard officers, don't have 100% that early on, but I had 100%. I was denied promotion. Okay? That was fine. That was a first, though. That was fine. So it was time again to send in another promotion packet. I was denied again. Okay? At that time, I was not very privy of the admin section dealing with my military career and all that kind of stuff, what's going on. But later I found out, since I was passed over twice for promotion to Lieutenant Colonel, I should have been separated from the Alabama Army National Guard if I didn't have 19 years of service. Now, if I had less than 19 years of service, then they could have separated me. But I found out that I had 19 years of service, that I was protected. That meant that the Alabama Army National Guard was supposed to allow me to get that 20th year. And then they had the opportunity to discharge me for sleep apnea. They did it at straight up 19 years. 19 years. That meant that I received no kind of benefits whatsoever. None. No benefits. I received nothing from the Alabama Army National Guard. I received no retirement flag. I received no discharge certificates. I received nothing. Again, I digress, but I'm sorry. So getting back to the Command and General Staff College, like I said, I had 100% and I was still denied. And I shouldn't have been denied because I had everything. No matter what, I don't care. I had everything. So next, I received a memorandum from Montgomery, Alabama, indicating that I have been disqualified from serving because of sleep apnea with CPAP machine. Okay? I didn't truly go through the disability evaluation system. Like I said, I didn't know anything about that. I concentrated on being the best officer, a quartermaster officer / the equal opportunity advisor. I assumed, and that's where I went wrong, I assumed that Alabama Army National Guard admin section would take care of all of their soldiers because all for one, an army of one. That's what I felt, but I was wrong. Alabama Army National Guard discharged me with no benefits whatsoever. I received not even severance pay with 19 years of service. They did not rate my disability because they said that no line of duty investigation was done. Later, in my own research, AR 600-8-4, I do believe, that's the LOD regulation. It states that if no LOD is done, it is presumed to be in line of duty. Yes, is in black and white. So, but before I found that AR, I applied to the Army Board of Corrections to get my records corrected. The Army Board of Corrections, I sent them everything, every piece of paper they had, that I had in my file pertaining to my discharge, lack of promotion, and they gave me a partial relief. They decided that I was due one constructive year to make 20 years, and that would give me my full benefits. But Alabama Army National Guard refuses to abide by the Board of Corrections recommendation. With that in mind, I had been corresponding back with the Board of Correction, indicating why the Alabama Army National Guard had not abided by the recommendation. I received an email indicating that since it's a state entity, that it does not have to accept the recommendation. But again, in my research, I found out that the Board of Corrections can make them accept the recommendation by going through the U.S. Reserves. I qualify for that. First off, I signed, my enlistment was with the U.S. Army Reserve. I signed up with the 493rd MP Company in Holt, Alabama. That is a reserve unit. I did basic and AIT at Fort McClellan, Alabama. Came back home, did an annual training with 493rd MP Company. Then I made up my mind that I wanted to be an officer because I saw my lieutenant, how he helped everyone. He didn't put us down and everything. He was very motivating. And so that inspired me to become an officer. So as a result, I joined the University of Alabama ROTC, and I received my commission. But prior to that, while receiving my commission, I had to find me a unit that would accept me with the simultaneous membership program, the SMP. And the only unit that I could find was Company A, 31st Support Battalion, and it was in the National Guard. I couldn't find a reserve unit that would accept an SMPs. So I transferred to the National Guard. So that's how I got into the National Guard. So I was never an enlistment. I just transferred from the U.S. Army Reserves. And to top it all, my commission came from the President of the United States. That's federal. That's U.S. That's the U.S. Army. So I am affiliated with the U.S. Army, with the U.S. Army Reserves. So therefore, the Board of Correction could have made Alabama Army National Guard accept those findings, the board findings, and granted me my 1 year. And if it had granted me that 1 year, I would have received full benefits. I could have received concurrent retirement pay and VA disability compensation. That's with full benefits right away. They didn't do it. And as a result, I am in financial ruins. I have no money in the bank. I have not been able to pay my utilities. I have not been able to buy any groceries. As of right now, I have until September the 4th to pay utilities. If it's not paid September the 4th, then I will not have any utilities in my home. No power, no water, no gas, nothing. I don't have any extra money now that I am on Social Security based on PTSD. And while all of this is still transferring, July 1st, get this, Alabama, the retirement systems of Alabama suspended my retirement check. My retirement check was used to pay my utilities and buy food. I have no money. I always use my Social Security check to pay my mortgage because I was on the verge of being homeless. I said to myself, my Social Security check will always be to pay my mortgage. I would never pay anything else to make sure that I would have a roof over my head. Now, I say this back and forth, the stuff that's been going on, it is due to my Alabama Army National Guard congressional inquiry. What I did was, it was taboo for a black person, but a black female to do it and had merit. I embarrassed the Alabama Army National Guard throughout the state. They were talking about that for a while. But unbeknownst to me, I thought everything was over with. But they're secretly conspiring to destroy me. And they have destroyed everything that I had, that I wanted in life. The most important thing that I wanted in life, I wanted to be a school administrator. I received my certification from the University of Alabama, started applying for position in hopes that I would get one. As we all know, they say our military training would be very helpful in securing a civilian job. Leadership training. Remember, I was an officer. I retired as a major. Retired. But my training didn't help me. My training hindered me. I applied for over 50 positions with the Alabama State Department of Education, Tuscaloosa County, my school system, the school system that I grew up in. I was hired in 1991. Nothing, no kind of job, placement or anything. Didn't get any interviews except for about 3 or 4. But out of the 50, Tuscaloosa City schools, Fayette, Hale County, Bessemer, you name it, all the surrounding counties, Pickens County, all the surrounding counties, I applied for a position and no kind of callbacks whatsoever. Now, I know that I'm not supposed to be just hired, but when you know that you have been trained by the United States Army, the greatest army in the world, you have the leadership, you've been an officer, you've been in leadership your entire military career, you know that you have a great chance of getting a job. You know that because that's what my cadre told me when I was in officer basic course at Fort Lee, Virginia. They said that your leadership will take you, it will soar, it will impress the employer, that they will want you, but not me. Lastly, I found out that through the credentialing services with the United States Army, all my military training has given me a doctorate. My level of education is a doctorate. That meant that I had that doctorate when I was applying for those positions with the Alabama State Department of Education. Yes, remember, I finished Command and General Staff College in 2003. Finished the University of Alabama with my certification 2005, 2006. I already had all of that. And plus, I was at Nova Southeastern University working on my doctoral degree. Yes, all of that. All of that in my military records. All of that was on my resume. Everything. Everything. But yet, I was never called back, basically, for an interview. And to top it off, while I was working, I received the worst treatment in my life with Tuscaloosa County school system. I did file an equal opportunity complaint against Tuscaloosa County schools in 2010 based on the interviews and not receiving one. After I filed that complaint, I was removed from my 6th grade math class. My certification was elementary 1 through 6. And I was placed in the worst classroom ever. I was placed in a classroom where there were, I call them maladaptive kids. They were awful. These kids were in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but I'm only qualified to teach 1 through 6. They had me teaching reading and math strategies to 7th and 8th graders who didn't care, who interrupted, who wanted to fight me, who cursed me. And they did nothing. I would send the students to the office to be disciplined. They would come right back and tell me, Mr. Giles, Mr. Hobbs, they said, I'm tired of Mr. Adams sending y'all up here. And tear the discipline form up in front of their faces and send them back to my class. And the cycle starts all over again. One female student tried to trip me up. She put her foot out, and I almost stumbled and fell to the ground. That was every day until I was forced to retire. You see, I do believe they were trying to get me to quit. But remember, the Army teaches us never quit, never surrender, never accept defeat. So that's one thing I did not do. I did not quit. So they forced me out. Either I retire or lose my retirement. And of course, I retired because I did not want to lose 23 years of retirement. Yes, I had 23 years of service with Tuscaloosa County Schools and forced out. So I'm asking for your help so that I can stay in my home. Please know that the money will be used to pay for my living expenses. Thank you. Thank you very much for your help in advance.